Welcome, my friends, to our discussion final in our CAPM series, and this is about Agile. We're going to talk about Agile today. Bear in mind that in the PMP guide, there's a fair amount of Agile, but there's not a separate chapter for Agile. And that means you need to navigate mindfully for every chapter from 4 to 13. You're going to have a section called Concepts, Trends, Tailoring, and Considerations for Agile. You got to sink your teeth into those considerations for Agile at the end of each chapter. Our buddy who went through this course some months ago, Brandon, he talked about how there was Agile on the CAPM, and the Agile focused quite a bit more than anything else on those sections where Agile is mentioned. Concepts, trends, tailoring, and considerations for Agile. The considerations for Agile is quite important. Okay, so has anyone here kind of learned about Agile in the past, heard about Agile? If so, what have you heard about Agile? What do you know about Agile? You could feel free, just give me a chat in the box there so that I'm aware of what you've been exposed to as far as Agile is concerned, or if not much, let me know it's not much. I want to know how far to go. It is here to stay. That's true. Last year, have you heard anything about Agile? I'm sure your mom has said something about Agile.
I really haven't. I'm from a different background, so.
Okay, yeah, good. Let's talk about Agile. Thank you for letting me know that. So let's talk about it, and it's going to make a lot more sense. So I'm sure you can relate to this last year. Have you ever cooked a dish that is brand new to you? You've never cooked it before. You are just learning it as you go. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I think.
Good. Okay. I remember the first time I tried, I don't think I successfully got to the end without a whole lot of help, but trying to bake a cake, and never done it before, eaten a lot of them, but trying to do something you haven't done before, it is not a straight line from like A to B. Another example is, have you ever driven to a place that you've never been before, and each twist and turn just unfolds with something new, and it's almost like a new learning experience? You see, that's how Agile is. This is how Agile can be used. Agile is a way of you working with complex and uncertain environments, so that instead of just planning going from A to B, you, through a series of experiments, figure out how to get to where you're going. That's really what Agile is about. That's the summary. All right, so let's examine. Agile Manifesto values. This is important because the whole Agile movement, it started off with 4 values, or let me put it this way. The Agile movement had been around for a long time, but it was made official with the introduction of 4 values. And I want to show you what these values are, and they'll make absolute sense because they're very humanistic. The values are: through working on projects, the people who wrote the Manifesto values, they came to value, watch the word, it says, through the work we've done, through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Think about that for a second. Where should you place more value? The humans on the project and how they interact, or a bunch of binders and tools and software? Of course, it's going to be the people. So if you've worked on enough projects, it'll just make common sense. Yeah, we got to value the individuals, the people, and their interactions over a bunch of processes and tools. Processes and tools are great, but we got to value people more. That's all this is saying. The second one is work in software over comprehensive documentation. Think about it. Which one would you value more? A product that works. Let's not even just talk about software. Let's talk about any product. You know, case in point, Father's Day 2021, I believe it was, I got a gift, and it was a back massager, because a lot of my close friends, they know that I'm always using back massagers, because when I traveled very heavily on planes, I developed this back thing where I go to the chiropractor a lot. So they got me this gift, and I got really excited, plugged it in, and crickets, nothing. There was a big old document that came with the back massager, but it didn't even come on. At that point, I valued my working product, but it wasn't working. So the documentation was useless. If you don't have a working product, the documentation is useless. And that's why we value having a working product that our customer can actually be happy about over a big old binder of documents where the product is no good. And that's just common sense, right? The other one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Don't you love it when you go to an establishment? I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Maybe you've been to a restaurant, or maybe it's a hotel, or maybe it's some establishment, and you are getting customer service that is less than ideal, or maybe there's a blunder made in your order, and you're trying to communicate to them, hey, this is what I ordered. I did not get what I ordered. I would like what I ordered. And instead of them helping you, they say, nope, that's what you ordered. Don't you understand what the menu says? How do you feel when they do those kind of things? It makes you just say, this is probably my last visit here. Or why did I come here? See, that's an example of people valuing a contract. The menu, it's like a contract. You ordered number 7. Number 7 doesn't come with this, that. So you're not getting it. That's like valuing the contract over collaborating. No, that's horrible. What we want to do in the world of Agile is work with the customer. Work with the customer, collaborate with the customer, even if the customer, customer, I know, I just ain't saying it, but I know you ordered a number 7 and now you're asking for a number 9. No, you're not going to say that. A very well put together establishment will say, we're sorry we got your order wrong. They will take the fall. They will take the blame. They're not going to come at you and say, well, that's what you ordered. No, they'll work with you. Customer collaboration is valued over contract negotiation. The value in having a customer for life, you could quickly erode that with bad attitude and just drive the customer away. So customer collaboration is valued over contract negotiation. We look at the customer as a partner. We're working together. We're working together to get you what you want, to your goals, right? And the final one says responding to change over following a plan. Now think about this scenario. Company XYZ decided they were going to build a massive facility in January of 2020. And then COVID hit. And then January rolled into February, and then COVID was really sudden, and then March, April, May, June. Now think about it. These folks had put together tens of millions of dollars for this new facility. In the event of COVID, would it make sense to still plow doggedly down that road? Well, now over half of the workforce is working from home. It wouldn't make sense to keep plowing down that road. They had to respond to change. So what did they do? They scrapped the project because they realized they know where everyone's coming back to work at this rate. So they responded to change. And in the world of Agile, we respond to change over following a plan. The great Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face. Isn't that true? when you're punched in the face and you're on the canvas looking up, where's your little plan now? Did your little plan have an out for that? No. And that's where Agile comes in. You got to respond to change. You should value that over following a plan. Plans are great, yes. But when uncertainty hits you, you got to be nimble. You got to be agile. So Agile, when you take a look at all of these, it's postures. It's a mindset. It's a way your mind is set to adapt, to change, to respond to complexity and the ever-changing world around you. Now, on top of those values, we have principles, 12 principles, and I'm going to go through them super quick. These probably won't be on your exam, but the mindset will help you deal with the questions. All right, so let's take a look at the first principle. It says, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable product. Imagine that if every project had people that were obsessed with delivering value early and continuously. Think about it. It's like the kid you take to the restaurant and you ask them to eat their veggies first, but they see a big old bowl of ice cream, some yummy dessert. Are you really going to win by asking them to eat the greens first? Some parents say, yes, I make them eat the greens. But in the world of Agile, we allow the customer to eat their dessert first because we know that's what they value. It's different. So that's our highest priority. I want our customers to be satisfied. I want to give them their dessert early because that's what they value. Number two, welcome changing requirements even late in development. So when someone asks for a change at the 99th hour in the world of Agile, we're not like, oh my goodness, why are they doing this? And that's not to say that there aren't checks and balances, they are. But if someone really needs a requirement late in development, we're going to have a mature understanding that this is going to help our customer. So we're going to do it. Number three, deliver working product frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. Why do we want to deliver early and continuously? Why do we want to deliver frequently? Well, we want to deliver frequently and we want the shorter time scale so that if there are errors, we can learn those errors and adapt, bounce back quickly. The shorter the iteration, the more likely it is we'll catch any errors before we get too far. So we want like a couple of weeks. In fact, in industry, when you're working an Agile project, you find the cadence or the rhythm to be every 2 weeks, we have a piece of working software that we show to the customer. Every 2 weeks, we have some form of functionality that we show to the customer. Number four, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. So we encourage working round the clock. Remember, in the world of Agile, we do things in short bursts. We call them sprints or iterations. So if you're doing things in short sprints, the feedback cycle needs to be short. Next one says, build projects around motivated individuals. Let me ask you this. How many of you love being around a demotivated team? No one, right? No one. And hopefully we're not the demotivated individual, right? So we want to build projects around people who are motivated. We want to give them the environment and support they need. And we're going to trust them to get the job done. There's a difference between trusting the team and being suspicious of the team. I got to sit on top of my team because if I don't, then they're not going to deliver. Well, you got some managers who are like that, and we have a name for them, Theory X managers, right? But we don't want to be like that in this world of Agile. We want to be the empowering Theory Y manager, right? Theory X, closed stance and posture. Theory Y, open arms, and grateful for the team. And that's how I want to be. That's the difference. So when you believe the team can get the job done, just let them do it. Number six, the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy called Professor Emeritus Albert Mehrabian. He conducted a series of experiments at UCLA, and he discovered that when you are communicating, the summary is this: if you're communicating something with empathy, heartfelt message, something of importance, just understand that 55% of what you communicate comes across not by the words, it's the body language. So body language accounts for 55%. Tone of voice accounts for 38%. And words, just face value alone, was just 7%. It's an elaborate experiment. You could read it up on Wikipedia, but it's become a benchmark in industry. Now, it's not every communication. It's where there's a lot of skin in the game. From that, though, you can follow your instincts to know that when you have the visuals, it is so much more content rich, because someone could say, I really care about this project. Body language is dead. Tone of voice is dead. The words are good, but they don't mean anything because there's no congruence with the body language. If someone says, I really, really care about this situation, then it takes it to a whole new level. So the body language, tone of voice, they're very important. And that's all this is saying. The most effective method of conveying information, if you really want to convey information well, always put the visual. That's why I tell people, as much as possible, when you're communicating in your projects, in your company, make sure you're actually seeing those individuals. If you're all in the same place, great. If you're not, try and see them on camera. It goes a long way. Just like I choose to turn on my camera. Without the camera, you're not getting the full value, which is why as a trainer, it's something that I just have to do as much as possible. Number 7, work in product is a primary measure of progress. How would you like it if someone said, we're 99.9% done? They said this last year. We're here today, a year later, and they're like, we're 99.9% done. No, work in product is a primary measure of progress, not percent complete. And that's why in the world of Agile, we don't go crazy over percent complete. We say, is it done? If it's done, great. If it's not done, then what do we need to do to get it done? Number 8, Agile processes promote sustainable development. Now, when we talk about sustainable development, we mean the sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So what do we mean by a constant pace? A pace that we can sustain for the long haul. Some people say, wow, I did 80 hours of work last week. Is that sustainable? You're going to kill yourself. You're going to have burnout. In fact, one of the people we know, he had a heart attack at work, died at work working. And the sad, sobering part is that individual is replaced the next week. So you gotta, in the world of Agile, we're big on mental health. We are big on physical health, and we want sustainable development, not crazy hours, overtime and all that. We don't want that. We hate that. Number 9, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. So we don't want to just fly over technical excellence and say, well, let's make it half good. No. We're big on that, because we know if you get a great design, whether it's software, hardware, whether it's a business solution, whether it's a medical solution, if you spend time getting technically excellent and designing that thing really well, it's going to enhance your agility. Because what's agility all about? It's about being lean and mean, cutting out the waste. If you do things in a shoddy way with a poor design, likelihood is you're going to have to go back again and fix that. So what we prefer in the world of Agile is really paying attention to technical excellence. Number 10, have you heard of this? And my friend in the military, you probably heard of keep it simple, sir. In the world of business, they keep it simple students or other things, which aren't very pleasant, right? KISS, you can Google it. But keep it simple. And what we mean by this is maximize the amount of work not done. Think about that. Maximize what you don't do. Maximize the amount of work that you didn't do. Don't maximize the amount of work done. Maximize the work not done, because you're saving so much in not doing that. Someone says, but Phil, how do I maximize the work not done? By thinking, by strategy, and it's a mindset. How can I get my stakeholder as happy as can be with the minimum amount of work? That's it. In the world of Agile, there's something we say, stop starting, start finishing. So do something, get to the end zone, finish it. Does it satisfy the customer? Yes. Oh, you mean I didn't have to do this big old amount of work over here? Yeah, you didn't have to, because the customer is happy. So you got to find what is the just barely good enough factor. It's a mindset, it's a concept, just barely good enough. We don't want to go overboard. Like in this world of Agile, we're not going overboard. We're giving the customer what is enough, just barely good enough. And then we can go on to the next thing and do it. And we are able to meet our goals instead of trying to build the Taj Mahal and all they wanted was a little hut at the corner, right? So you got to find out what will be just barely good enough and will delight the customer. That needs to be the mindset. All right, number 11, the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. If you let the team make up its mind, find its own way, they own that way, they own that posture, and at the end of the day, they knock stuff out of the park. They get really great work done. Final one here says, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. What are we saying here? We're saying that periodically sit back and as a team, look at what you've done and ask, how can we do better? How can we get better results? You know, working together. You know, let's be honest and open and let's talk about what we could do differently. So in the world of traditional, we call it lessons learned, but in the world of Agile, we call it a retrospective. The difference between a lessons learned and retrospective is also that the lessons learned is at the end of the project, most times, at the end of the whole thing. Then we say, what could we have done differently? But in the world of Agile, the retrospective is done at a regular cadence. So we're finding out what can we do better today, like right now? What can we do better maybe tomorrow? What can we do better maybe the next sprint? But it has to start with a now mindset. And we're going to find that thing and we're going to intentionally do better. We're going to intentionally do great, improve today, not tomorrow. Now, that needs to be the mindset. Okay. And those are the 12 Agile Manifesto principles, you know, so this will give you a basis. But if anybody ever asks you, this has become the hallmark of me training Agile, because trust me, when I first started, no one told me what Agile is in one word. I want to tell you what Agile is in one word. Agile, first and foremost, is a mindset. That's what it is. It's a posture. It's an attitude. It's a mindset. That's the first thing. So don't let anyone tell you it's a methodology. No. Tell them, no. That's not what my buddy Phil told me. My buddy Phil told me it's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's a way you adapt to the world around you. It's a way you see the world around you. It's a way you pivot when you need to the changing dynamics around you. And it's a mindset where you persevere to stay the course. If you're finding that what you're doing as a team is working, stay the course. Don't deviate. But if it's not working, then pivot. So Agile is a mindset, okay? So in the world of traditional, we have point A, we have point B, okay? This is traditional or predictive project management. In the world of predictive, when we're going from point A to point B, it's pretty much a straight line. You know where you're going. Boom, you plan it. You plan, okay, this is phase 1, phase 2, 3, 4, 5. You plan the phases. Maybe along the way, you know, there might be a little bit of deviation, just a little bit, but you get to where you're going. That's predictive. Agile, Agile is not like that. For Agile, it's going to be something more like this. You're going to have iteration 1, and then iteration 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. It seems like you're almost off, and then 6, and boom, you get to the end. So you got to the end, but you got to remember, Agile projects, they have high uncertainty. right? They have high levels of complexity. Sometimes agile projects are nothing but chaos. But that's why we need agile, because there's just no way where there's that amount of uncertainty that you're going to plot a straight line. No. And that's why we need agile. Okay, so this will be the world of agile. Okay. And that's why we need agile. That is the use of agile. All right, so let's move on. There's a few more things I have to show you about agile. There's things we call agile practices. And there's quite a number of them. I don't want to obsess over them, but I'll just give you some context. We do things in short bursts called iterations or sprints. We focus on getting a potentially shippable increment to the customer in a timely fashion. There's some other terminology here, like minimum viable product. What's the minimum amount of product that we need to deliver to our customer to know if this solution is what they're looking for and if it is a viable solution in the marketplace? Then we have this thing called a minimum marketable feature. Again, these are not on your exam, but a minimum marketable feature is what is the minimum feature that we need to make marketable to our customers that they'll actually buy this update or this release. We have the minimum marketable product, which is what is the minimum feature set that we need to release to put into the market that will be appealing to our customers. We have the minimum business increment. What is the minimum amount of functionality that we need to release into the business for our end users to find value from? These are just terminologies that are out there. Again, it's not going to be on your exam, I can promise you. This will not be on your exam. Maybe MVP, if that, but I highly doubt it. Everything else is more emergent and not on the CAPM. VDO just means a value delivery office. It's like the equivalent of a PMO, only that they're focused more on value. We focus on customer collaboration, working together, motivated individuals, face-to-face conversation, self-organizing teams. We have regular demos to show off what we have done so that the customer could be aware of how things are progressing. Let's go to some X's here. So the retrospective, I've talked about that. Refinement is where we refine the work to be done. We refine our plans. Refactoring just means you correct the code. You go back and clean up the code. In IT, for example, or it could be in a technical space. Whatever you did, you go back in there and clean up the work. Co-location is favored in Agile. Pairing people together to work is favored. We use the concept of burn charts that show a big amount of time that we have to do stuff. So maybe we plan, we're going to do 40 hours, and then you just show it burning down. But instead of hours, we use something called velocity in the world of Agile. It's going a little bit far because you don't really need all this minutia for CAPM, but just understanding that we use story points in the world of Agile, which has to do more with you giving each requirement or request that the customer has a certain number of points. And based on how many points that is, you're able to deduce if you can do it within a time box. So let's say a task is drinking water. I could say drinking this bottle of water is, I could say it's 20 story points. See? And then I can say, well, if that's 20 story points, then this is going to be 15 story points. So we go by the concept of, is it big as what your benchmark is? Is it smaller? Is it the same size? But you're not really going to get those on the CAPM, so I don't want to take you down that road. We plan iterations. Like I said, there's small time boxes. Every 2 weeks, for example, we could plan to get something done. We use the concept of higher level road mapping, visioning what we need to do and putting that into a type of charter called an Agile project charter. We use the concept of team charters for good behaviors and bad behaviors to be explicit so that we know this is desired, this is undesired. The definition of done, how do we know when an increment is truly done? The definition of ready. How do we know when a user story which is a convention we use in Agile. How do we know when a story is ready to be done? Now, somebody say, Phil, what is a user story? A user story, think about it like a customer-centered request for something. So here's a story for me. As a, it follows this format. As a, I would like, whatever you would like, so that whatever you want to accomplish. So I could say, as a tired traveler, I would like a fully collapsible bed so that I can get good sleep and be awake and ready for my meeting when I land in Australia. In other words, I want to sleep the whole journey. Sleep and be awake when I arrive. So a story has the role, we call it the role, the goal, and the benefit. That's the user story format. Role, goal, benefit. Now, this is a little bit outside of what you need for your exam, but nonetheless, the narration helps you understand how Agile works. So in Agile, we use user stories, not for every endeavor. Some people don't. They have their own way of writing their requirements or requests. In fact, with Roy and I, my buddy Roy and I, you might have seen him on the course, we prefer using the word request. We don't like the word requirement because requirement often connotes it is required, but it doesn't mean that what a customer is asking is required. It could be a nice to have. So we use the concept of request. So as a, I would like, so that, and that's your user story. All right. In terms of estimating how long things will take, we don't do that in Agile. Instead, we use something called planning poker to decide on a story size. Once we understand the story size, we can determine if it can be done within that time box, whatever our time box is, because every group, every team has its own time box. So if your time box is 2 weeks, the question is, can we get this done in 2 weeks? And you can determine that as a team. And then we have this thing called affinity estimating, where we use the concept of bigger, smaller, same size, looking at a story. We have a benchmark story similar to what I did. This is 20. All right, if this is 20, this is a little bit smaller, so this is going to be 15. And you kind of use that idea of bigger, smaller, same size to rapidly sort out a bunch of stories. And we call it affinity estimating. So each person on the team takes a deck of stories, and based on what they think it is, they put it in categories. You know, it's big, it's extra large, it's, you know, medium, it's small, whatever it is, they sort them out. And it's just called affinity estimating because we put them in categories: extra large, large, medium, small, extra small. And it helps us decide, can this be done in a 2-week time box? And those that are extra large, it's usually no. Those that are large, it's usually no, need to split it more. Those that are medium, yeah, we could. And that's it. Very rough in a nutshell. You got to remember that this Agile section is usually 20-something hours when I teach it for the PMP. So this is really shrinking it down really small. In the world of Agile, we have a team, and we don't want the team to be one-trick ponies. I-shaped people, it's a characteristic used to describe people who have depth in one area, but they just know that one thing. It's like someone who can only code, and they can only code in Java, and that's it. They can only code, they can't test, they cannot do analysis, forget anything to do with architecture. They just code in one language. That's like an I-shaped person. Now, we have T-shaped people. T-shaped people are what we desire in Agile. Agile teams are cross-functional. The team members work together. They create a swarm effect to get things done. They swarm in on stuff to get things done. T-shape refers to a person with one deep area of specialization, but they have broad ability in the rest of the skills required by the team. This is the kind of person we want in Agile, someone who can do a bit of everything, but they've definitely got this specialism. Then to bring this to more life, you could think about a comb, the broken comb effect. This is a person with various depths of specializations. You know, they can code, they can test, but their main thing is to do analysis. Maybe analysis is one of their main lanes, or maybe they've got two that they do really, really well. Again, it's a profile that we want. We call it the broken comb effect, or we could call it the paint drip effect. You know, it's like that person on the soccer team. They could be the goalie, they could be the striker, they could be the midfielder, they could be defense. That's kind of the broken comb effect. All right. So Agile types. We have two types of Agile. We have iteration-based Agile, where we have a time box of like 2 weeks, for example. And then we have flow-based Agile. It's like going with the flow. We don't have a time box. We have a steady stream of work, but the time boxes for doing stuff is different. The time it takes to complete a feature is not the same for each iteration. So we're more flexible in this world. So I want to give you a very quick example of how Agile works in a framework that is of an Agile nature. It's called Scrum. Have you heard of Scrum before? Anyone heard of Scrum? Ever heard of Scrum? Outside of the rugby world? Well, Scrum is a framework. We're going to talk about it. This is how it works. Now, these folks, the yellow cutout people here, let's zoom in. These people, they got some requirements, some requests. They want to build a game. And I'm aware of the time. I'm going to try my best, like I said, to get you out of here as soon as I can. So we're close. All right. So these people, they want to build a video game machine. So they begin putting all the ideas together. They're working with this guy in the middle. This person in the middle is a product owner. It's one of the roles that exists in Scrum. Scrum is a framework that embodies a lot of the Agile principles, and it just helps us to get work done in a complex environment. So these are the stories that these stakeholders have. They want this stuff to be done. So all of that is going to be put into this artifact. We call it a product backlog. The product backlog, imagine a backlog that has everything a customer wants. Maybe these customers, maybe there's hundreds of things they want. Well, you're not going to get all of them done immediately. You got to break them down to little chunks. But we first of all need to plan, what are we going to get done in these little chunks? Now, these little chunks, we're going to call them iterations. You could also refer to them as sprints. So every sprint, we have sprint planning, and we're going to decide how much of the product backlog are we going to get done. So we decide as a team what we're going to get done. That becomes a sprint backlog. We take a subset of the product backlog. It's called a sprint backlog. And now we know what we're going to do within the sprint. That's why it's called a sprint backlog. A sprint is like an iteration. And like I said, in this world, it's 4 weeks or less. But the sprint actually started the moment we got into sprint planning. I really want to make this clear. The moment we hit sprint planning here, you're already in the sprint. The moment you start sprint planning, you are in the sprint. So even though I'm showing the word sprint in the middle, I want you to remember your sprint already started in sprint planning, okay? So the sprint can be 4 weeks or less. Every day of the sprint, we're going to have what we call a daily stand-up or a daily scrum. We call it a daily scrum in the world of Scrum. In the world of Agile, but not Scrum in particular, you might hear daily stand-up meeting. The daily scrum is where we sync up, we sync together. We understand, okay, last year, what are you doing today to move us towards the goal? What did you do yesterday, by the way, to move us towards the goal? Are there any impediments? You know, Mark, what are your impediments? You know, what did you do yesterday to move us towards this goal? What are you going to do today? You know, Leroy, what did you do yesterday to move us towards the goal? What are you going to do today to move us towards the goal? Are there any impediments? You see, you ask those questions, the team members answer those questions, and they sync up. And since I know what Leroy's working on, since I know what Lassie is working on, since I know what Mark is working on, I, as a team member, I'm able to see how my own tasks fit in and where they're going to sync. And then we can work together a lot more effectively when we understand the direction of the project on a daily basis. Now, in the middle of the sprint, we are going to decide what are we going to do in the next sprint. But we need to start breaking down work that is like extra large or large. We might need to break those down, and we do that in something called a backlog refinement ceremony. So think about it. We're working, but we're also going to be involved in priming our backlog for future iterations. At the end of the day, we get our potentially shippable increment. It's potentially shippable. It doesn't mean it has to ship. Sometimes it could ship, and other times it may not be featured enough. But at the end of the day, we are going to demo this increment in what we call a sprint review. This is where the customer comes around, takes a look at what we've done, and gives feedback, and maybe even introduces some new stories about what we could add to the features to be done. And when all that is done, we have a final event, and that event is called a sprint retrospective. Like I told you, it's where we look back and say, what can we improve on? What went well? What didn't go so well? And we could even have a couple of items that we put into our backlog for future sprints. And this is Scrum. Now, I don't expect you to be tested on Scrum on your exam, but being a CAPM masterclass, it would just make sense for me to talk about this. Now, for those taking the CAPM in 2023, hey, of course you need to know this. You got to know it. You got to know a lot more Agile stuff for the 2023 go forward CAPM, because PMI is up in the ante. So anyone who's watching this for the CAPM in 2023, well, you got to know your Scrum. You got to know all the other things that I said. You know, some things I said were just nice to knows. Oh, they are going to become must knows. All right, in closing, there's another framework that I like to talk about. It's called Kanban. And Kanban is very popular in today's world of Agile. It's very simple, it's lightweight. It focuses on limiting work in progress to identify issues. And all that means is we focus on doing less so that we can actually get more done. We start where we are, we refine as we go. That's the mindset. Kanban board looks something like this. So we have 3 columns: to do, doing, and done. And as we move from to do to doing, we take note of the work in progress limit. Because if it's just 2 people on a team, then this could make sense. But if you just got 1 person, we want to discourage from doing too many things. So imagine if there's just 1 team member. Maybe in the doing column, item 1 is pending something from outside. So you move to item 2. That's okay. But where you have like 5, 6 items in doing and you've got 1 person, that's a problem. So the idea is that as you start off, you could start this tomorrow, my friends. You could just go buy a board from your local convenience store, list out your to-do, doing, dones, and as you're doing them, you begin moving them, right? And as you're getting them done, you just move them into the done column. And it just gives you some focus as far as what needs to be done and what is waiting some further action. It's just that simple. Kanban boards are a low-tech, high-touch technology that may seem overly simplistic at first, but those using them soon realize their power. I'm one of them. I wrote 12 books using a Kanban system. It's so powerful, so compelling. It's right there in your face. Like you put it on the wall, that thing ain't going nowhere. It's going to keep reminding you, I need to be done. I need to be done. And you could have a long-term Kanban board for life, or you could have a Kanban board for just some short bursts, short iterations of whatever you're working on. In the Kanban method, it is more important to complete work than it is to start new work. There's no value derived from work that is not completed. So the team works together to implement and adhere to the work in progress limits, the WIP limits, and get each piece of work through the system to done. I told you a few moments ago, we say in the world of Kanban, stop starting, start finishing. To close this out, my friends, let's dial back into this world of process groups and knowledge areas. So I want to give you the breakdown of Agile through knowledge area lens. So the first knowledge area is integration. The summary about this is, it's not the project manager in the world of Agile doing the integration, it's the team of experts. So that's all you need to know. The yellow stuff that I highlight, that's the killer part that you really need to know. Iterative and Agile approaches promote the engagement of team members as local domain experts in integration management. It's not the project manager in this case. So all the integration that you see done in traditional by PM, it's done by the team. All right, second one, scope. Agile methods deliberately spend less time trying to define and agree on scope in the early stage of the project. They spend more time in establishing how the process for its ongoing discovery and refinement. Remember, I talked about backlog refinement. We spend more time deciding that. Schedule. Adaptive approaches use short cycles to undertake work, review the results, and adapt as necessary. These cycles provide rapid feedback on the approach and suitability of deliverables. So the bottom line is this: we ain't spending time putting together no Gantt chart, no schedule, no. Instead, let's just understand what our cadence is, short cycles. Let's see if it can be done in the cycle. If yes, let's just do it. Same for cost. We're not creating this big old budget. And no, we got a good idea of the budget at a high level, but we're not going into granular details. Instead, lightweight estimation methods can be used to generate a fast, high-level forecast of project labor costs, which can then be easily adjusted as changes arise. Next one is quality. Recurring retrospectives allow you to check on the effectiveness of the quality processes. They look for the root cause of issues and then suggest trials of new approaches for improving quality. Next one is resources. Projects with high variability benefit from team structures that maximize focus and collaboration, such as self-organizing teams with generalizing specialists. What did I call that? T-shaped skills, right? So you got a team with T-shaped skills, generalizing specialists. They're able to do what they need to do. They collaborate, and that's how we roll. There's no project manager chasing people down with a stick in the world of Agile. Communications. What can I say other than communications must travel fast in the world of Agile? When it comes to risk, you want to intentionally ask the question, what could affect our Agile project? It says high variability environments incur more uncertainty and risk. To address this, projects managed using adaptive approaches make use of frequent reviews. So all that sprint review and the demos and the stuff I showed you where the customers check in the work, it's a risk coping mechanism. Next one is procurements. In Agile environments, instead of having a very strict fixed price incentive fee contract or fixed price contract, instead, we could have an umbrella contract with smaller, more flexible arrangements at lower levels. It says, in Agile environments, specific sellers may be used to extend the team. This collaborative working relationship can lead to a shared risk procurement model where both buyer and seller share in the risks and rewards, kind of like a partnership. In these cases, a governing agreement such as a master services agreement may be used for the overall engagement, with the adaptive work being placed in an appendix or supplement. Here's a final one. Projects experiencing a high degree of change require active engagement and participation with project stakeholders. After all, it's said in the Agile Manifesto, business people and developers should work together daily throughout the project. All right, so just remember, the last section on the knowledge areas, that is what is in the PMBOK guide. Everything else is just gravy, just trying to make it more lively and interesting for you. Okay, And that, my friends, is it. We are done with our introduction to the world of Agile. You did very well to have gone through it. I want to commend you on doing that. So now we are going to end this recording, and we're going to talk about any questions, final steps on our CAPM journey. So thank you very much.